I'm a pretty big into Marxism, and I've watched your stuff for a while. I've kind of stopped watching very recently. But I was going to ask, in all of your stuff, it seems like you reject Marxism. Can I ask why that is?
In what way do you think I reject Marxism?
Well, it seems that you reject the notions that basically led Marx to coming to a dictatorship of the proletariat, specifically with your transition from a capitalist economy to a quote unquote market socialist economy with an anarchist revolution following it. That's all I could really find. I was going to ask why that is.
Well, a dictatorship of the proletariat is just a worker-run society. It doesn't literally require a dictatorship. The word meant something different back then. I think
No,
that
I'm aware of that.
a market socialist society is a worker-run society. And under market socialism, there's literally no bourgeois class. So at that point, the only remaining thing you have to deal with is the commodification of the economy. And I think that's something that's better done incrementally, because doing so requires a bunch of like really tectonic economic shifts that, if done poorly, could lead to mass famine or starvation. And I don't think that's good. I think that the wresting political power from the bourgeoisie is the necessary first step, and that all of the twiddly little economic micromanagement stuff has to come after that.
Right. I'm going to follow this up not with a question, but rather a continuation of this. I'm going to disagree because socialism cannot function on a market basis, period.
Please refrain from trying to debate, Vaush. This is intended as an AMA. I would recommend to ask your last question.
I'll simply concede and say that market socialism isn't socialism. It's just a portion of it. It's just a matter of which steps have to be taken and in what order to get socialism. But I agree. I'm not giving up on the full decommodification part.
All right, fair enough. I had that question stuck in my head. I did not expect to go up first.
Still been a pleasure.
I guess, of course. I guess, what's it like being a YouTuber of your size, this involved with the rest of the online political sphere?
Fun, mostly. I mean, I get a lot of hate for it, and that can be frustrating at times, but for the most part, I enjoyed it. I feel pretty happy about the fact that, at least according to the messages and emails I've gotten, I feel I've had a pretty decent rate of success in improving people's lives, giving them arguments to help them deal with family and friends, that sort of thing. I wish I could sway more people, but I think that I would feel that way no matter how much influence I had.
Would you rather not have the right to vote, or would you rather be drafted?
I think that for me personally, I would rather not have the right to vote than to be drafted, but I think societally, I would rather everyone be drafted than everyone be disenfranchised. It's one of those like the consequences of it's like broad social disenfranchisement exceed proportionally the consequences of an individual's disenfranchisement in a way that drafting doesn't. If anything, I think drafting gets better for the individual the more people are drafted, because that means it's like a socially collective problem rather than just you get fucked specifically.
Yeah, well, only if you're being collectively drafted, that is. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean,
So my
ideally,
second
I
question is,
hope I wouldn't be the only one. I don't think I'd make a great soldier anyway.
How do you feel about the general discourse of the amount of leftist infighting that's going on, at least online?
Oh, it's nightmarish, as always. And I seem to be the center of a lot of it, unfortunately. It seems to be something lefties have literally always done. I mean, a century ago, they would have killed each other over these disagreements, so it's nice to see at least now that they're contained mostly to, Twitter infighting. I'd really like it to stop, though. I mean, if nothing else, we can share in agreement on some key positions, right? I mean, even if we don't agree on all of the detailed bits, there are shared causes that we should take seriously. Anti-fascism, that sort of thing. But it seems we can't often even do that. So the fight goes on.
Anna Kasparian, I don't know if you're ever going to get to the level of being friends ever again, but do you think that you could ever be like amicable with her, or what would it take to get there?
No, I would like to. I genuinely, like, in spite of what a lot of people think, my numbers wise, I really genuinely don't benefit from drama. I would like to be on good terms there. I would like to be on good terms with all of the people who I dislike, from the bread tubers to the tankies to whatever. I don't want ever like any bridge permanently burnt. But, you know, I think that her behavior right now is just ridiculous. So as long as she's behaving this way, I don't really see a path forward. If she ever stopped this and acted differently, if circumstances change, then yeah, I would be happy to. I mean, I reached out to her privately even when the drama was sort of beginning to kick off. You know, ideally I'd like to handle a lot of this stuff privately because, you know, maybe you can influence people behind the scenes and avoid what would otherwise be this big public confrontation. But, you know, we'll see if it ever happens.
So I had a quick question for you, Vaush.
Hmm?
What do you think Democrats can do in this upcoming election to have a repeat of 2022? I know it won't ever be the same like it was, but what do you think they should focus on?
That's really difficult. I think, honestly, I think they have to be meaner. It's like there are so many potential dubs that the Dems have left on the table because they're not willing to engage in or sustain the level of mockery that would be. And to be clear here, I don't mean like disingenuous mockery. I think that the Republicans legitimately deserve and have earned quite a lot of it. And I think they need to be better about pushing that idea. Because at the end of the day, like, you can push the issues as much as you want, and on issues, Democrats are better across the board than Republicans, but people resonate with narratives most of all. And I just do not like the narrative that Democrats have pushed for decades now. The idea of our system works fine, it just needs some positive tweaks. I mean, that's been like the Clintonite line, and it's been going on uninterrupted since the 90s. The loudest proponent of it was Hillary Clinton, who had the brilliant idea to challenge Donald Trump's "Make America Great Again" with "America is already great." What was she thinking? There has to be an acknowledgement of like a danger and a narrative to overcome it. And I think that's a real narrative, right? They have to be willing to commit to that.
Yeah, I think I hold that same sentiment for the most part. Is start fighting fire with fire rather than being all cordial and nice all the time. And I think also another thing is I wish we would fight more with policy more than anything else. Of like, this is what we have; these people don't have this.
No, I agree. I think that they should also be much more direct about that. Recently, Biden has there's this thing where like Republicans would vote against the infrastructure bill, but then like they're taking credit for stuff that's being built with it. Like a bridge is being built in a town and they're like, yeah, look at this wonderful new bridge, but they voted against that. So I guess Biden has started having signs put up where it's like funded by Biden's bipartisan infrastructure bill. And I think they need to do that all the time because basically every good thing in this country comes from, at least at the very least, some kind of like moderate compromise bill that gets passed. But usually it's Democrat pushed, you know, Republicans obstruct in the legislature, not Democrat. Well, not, you know, more so than Democrats at least. So yeah, take more possession over your wins and more possession over their L's. And I think that'll work.
Which one do you value more, social issues or economic issues? No, you value both, but if you had to pick, which one do you weigh more?
I genuinely don't think they can be extricated from each other, right? Because economic issue in a liberal, like capitalist society, economic harm or economic disparities are the weapons used to marginalize like racial communities in large part, right? Like a huge part of the post Jim Crow racism that Black people have experienced are sort of the economic downstream. I really don't think they could be separated. I think like I can imagine tyrannically evil worlds where there is only racism or where there is only classism, but they would both be fantasy worlds because I don't think they can really exist without each other.
When it comes to IP laws, right? Or people like owning like their likeness or product, how would that operate under your social system?
God on it's true. I don't know how IP laws should really be set right now, because I don't think they should be totally abolished. I think that some level of IP protection is necessary under our current system. Under a socialist system, even a fully decommodified one, I don't know. I mean, even if people don't have money to spend, I feel like there's still some value in protection of a person's intellectual property at some level, but not really at the level that exists now. I mean, current IP laws are just like a Disney creation, basically. I'm not really sure. It's really complicated. I definitely want IP law to be scaled down massively from where it is right now. I don't really know where I want it to stop.
No, that's all good. You're being pretty honest. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Take care.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
Howdy.
Howdy. A bit nervous here, so I'm going to stumble my words a bit, but here we go. Luckily, I have something written here so I can read upon. So I've gone ahead and seen your content regarding the necessity of voting blue no matter who on the general election, which I agree upon. You know, it's reasonable. if ranked choice voting is going to be the solution here towards this conundrum under democracy, at least, shouldn't you be a bit more louder, dedicating perhaps a few more videos towards advocating for the solution?
Well, there has to be a good access for it. The problem, honestly, is that getting rid of first past the post voting is a step, but it's not going to fix the problem in and of itself, because at the end of the day, the American electorate are still confined to a pretty narrow Overton window in terms of viable and acceptable political ideology. I think that it's something I would promote a bit more actively, but at the moment, like with every passing election, it feels like the time to call for it grows more and more distant, you know? Because we keep the whole fascism problem keeps escalating and escalating, escalating. If we ever had a period of relative detente or calm or something where it felt like the nation's major issues were debating, I don't know, like remember the NAFTA debates? Like that was a big thing. Like that's so little compared to what we talk about today in terms of like the stakes involved. I hope that one day there will be a time where the American public will consider seriously the value of ranked choice voting. But right now, it just feels like I would just be saying it to say it, you know? It'd be like a virtue signal. Like, here, everyone, you know, look, I'm one of those people who's aware of it and promotes it. I don't know if it would do anything. Maybe I should more, but yeah, I don't know.
Hello, Vaush. I'm a viewer. Viewers been watching since like around the Ukrainian war invasion. You know,
Howdy.
a couple years ago. My question was, what are your thoughts on like meta politics? Do you think they're useful, and do we need more awareness about them?
Okay, so I've heard meta politics used in a few ways. I would like a follow-up reference.
So like
right.
almost looking at like a politics from the background and analyzing every individual ideology, even our own.
This seems like one of those things that has a lot of value in an academic space and probably less so in an advocacy space. I think that right now the real political struggle is one for simplification. The right has landed on very simple, incorrect narratives that they push time and time again, relentlessly. And I think we struggle with this because the truth doesn't necessarily have to be simple, whereas a lie always can be. I think that our primary focus right now should be on taking what we have and trying to find ways to distill it, to make it palatable. And that's a public work. Of course, in the academic space, certainly it can be valuable to look at things that way.
As someone who was, unfortunately, involved in third-party stuff like a couple years ago, how would you suggest removing people from its vile influence?
People who are in third parties are definitely, like, by default populist, because otherwise they would be in with the mainline party that better represents them. I think it's important to direct people's populism in a positive direction, because the main thing that directs a lot of people here, they don't want to be cucked, is the thing. Populists really don't like, you know, squaring their shoulders and saying, all right, time to vote for the Dems again. It's frustrating. It feels like you're contributing to a, you know, an interminably, you know, locked in process, like you're making it worse even. I think you have to find constructive outlets for that populism. I've noticed a lot of third-party voters are people who actually do very little extra electoral advocacy. Like, they don't tend to go to protests, they don't tend to go to, like, picket lines, they don't tend to do, like, strike front stuff or any of that, because if they had those outlets, I think it would be easier for them to conceptualize the vote as just one tiny part of a very broad political project. Without that, you know, maybe they think they don't have any choices other than to vote third party.
It appears to me that Stalin and Mao only sought to use communism as a means of acquiring power. I know you said earlier that you know, communism would solve all issues, but how would communism solve the issue of madmen like Mao and Stalin from attaining power? Like, how would communism prevent those people from attaining power? Sorry.
Well, this is the boring answer, but I think it's actually quite radical. I think that you have to be radically democratic before everything else. Because I agree with you, you know, So many so-called communist or socialist parties or revolutions have essentially just been personality cults for a specific leader. They say, you know, do away with this democratic apparatus, do away with this one and that one. I will lead the party. We don't need distractions. We don't need infighting. I will manage it. And then, of course, they're just a dictator, and it's just any other dictatorship. I agree with you. I think that we think of democracy in its current form, liberal democracy, as this cut-down, fake, agitated thing, but democracy as like an underlying principle is the single best thing liberalism stands for and fails to adhere to. We need to take that and radicalize it. Marx was a firm believer in democracy on every level. That's why he posited socialism not as equality, but as freedom, a mechanism both on an economic and political level where you can maximize the degree to which people have autonomy and self-control, positive freedom. If a movement is anti-democratic, I will almost always speak against it. Even if it brings great material wealth to its people, even if it's very good for its people, it will, if not democratic, ultimately fall on itself. And this happens time and time and time and time again. So that's where my sympathies lie. You know, as long as there is democracy present in a movement, even if it's slow or faltering or failing, I think that there's value there. But if there is no democracy present, if there's no meaningful way of addressing internal issues, like, even if there's good being done now, the system is broken, right? I mean, you can arrive at temporarily good outcomes through bad processes, you know? Like, you could, you know, after a flood, you know, new nationwide policy, remove all water in sight. It's great for the first day and terrible for the second year. It's just something that I worry about a lot. That's one of the reasons why I push so hard for the vote blue no matter who thing. Not because Democrats are excellent stewards of democracy, but because Republicans would take it away. And we need that, even in its weakened form.
Your approach in America is like to always vote Dem, right? But I don't see the same thing. So I'm just wondering if I should vote Green or something, where they actually have a shot at like doing better than they do in America here, right? Because the system's slightly different.
Yeah, I would actually vote Lib Dem or Green over there, because the problem is that the gap between the parties is much larger over here than it is over there. Like, our Republicans are worse than your guys by far, but also your Labor Party is like sinking, right? You also have you have a you know, a parliamentary system, so there's slightly more room, more shoulder room for expression outside of just a party duopoly. But also, I think a critical difference is that the Labor Party has done something astonishing, right? The Democrat Party over here in America is inconsistent, dishonest, almost maliciously incompetent, and completely capital-focused. But it is generally, I think, consistent, you know? We kind of know what we're getting. The Labor Party revealing that it promoted claims of anti-Semitism in order to fuck over Corbyn, and then shifting right, like lurching to the right once Corbyn's out to essentially return to like a Blairite position. But worse, I think Blair wouldn't have. I genuinely think that Blair would not have done this like massive rightward lurch. I think that Blair would do a Biden thing now, where he'd be like, trans people, 3 genders. You know, I think there's 3 genders, or maybe more. It's worse than that. So the Labor Party has fallen. Okay, it's Rome. It's burning. Yeah. It doesn't exist anymore. Godspeed. Your country's falling apart. I'm sorry.